This is my farm with 0 giant crops. And this is my farm full of giant crops. But before we can fully appreciate the fruits and vegetables of my success, we do have to go all the way back to the humble beginning. Now, I knew I wanted a farm full of the goods, the giants. I mean, my farm had been wasting away for decades while no one was tending to it, and so I needed to come back with a bang, even if it would take many more decades to achieve said goal. It's really the thought that counts here. So I did what any sane farmer would do. I planned. I took full advantage of the Stardew planner and plotted out where each individual giant crop would go. If only that was the only planning I should have done, because, well, I thought I was putting my best foot forward here, and I must admit, I was a little proud of myself, but life said, hey girl, I've got other plans. And so, welcome to the start to this giant adventure. Of course, as you saw in my meticulously plotted out farm layout, I did opt for the standard farm for obvious reasons. I wanted max giant crop space. No tile will be left behind. Only, as you can see, that's not actually true. You see, I am filling my farm with giants, but not completely. Like, not every tile or every possible tile will have a giant. I do still want to be able to leave my house. Controversial choice simply because the company inside my house surely will be far better than what I can find in town. But I've been through quarantine once in my life. I don't really need to simulate that experience quite yet. But what I can do is to start to rein in the money. And again, it is the thought that counts here, because the parsnips I plant are not worth a pretty penny by any means. But when you have barely any pennies to your name, they all start to look beautiful, I swear. Anyway, I was clearly distracted because I forgot to move my bed to its rightful position. But don't worry, I quickly dashed back inside to fix that. And then, to make up for the pitiful potential parsnip profits, I did go ahead and buy some potato seeds. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. There's no cauliflower in sight. What are you doing? I know. I did warn you though. I came from humble beginnings. You can't just try and grow giant crops your first day on the job. Well, okay, you can, but it wouldn't be that efficient, at least in my mind. You see, I am planning, and oops, I guess I did more planning than I had originally thought, but in any case, like I said, I'm planning to build up enough money to be able to steadily keep up with the giant crop demand. I can't exactly do that if the crops I grow are crops that can't be harvested, because each night, those patches of 3x3 cauliflowers, melons, pumpkins, powder melons, and potentially key fruit have the chance to bulk up into their giant potential. So not a single one of them will be harvested on my watch. So to hopefully ramp things up, I did turn to fishing on my second day, spending most of my time withering away at the mountain lake. This pattern of fishing continued on the next day because I did need that catfish money, and no big deal, but I did catch 3 of them. I had to hold off on planting any more crops for the time being because I am unfortunately not skilled enough to craft a scarecrow. I've already lost my dignity starting with nothing but 15 parsnips and a whole lot of dirt. I don't need my dignity stripped away even more by a pesky crow. But even though I had the best of intentions, I didn't really listen to them, because then the next day I just proceeded to plant more potatoes. In any case, after dipping my toes in the farmer way of life, I headed back up to the mountain lake, managing to fish up a broken trident. My luck kept on continuing because Marnie dropped off my cat companion, Giumbus. And as you could probably tell, their name was in fact inspired by the one, the only Wumbus. But of course, with a bit of a twist. Feel free to name any future children Giumbus if you would like. Other people might judge you, rightfully so, but you can be rest assured I won't. And hey, like I said, it's the thought that counts in this case, okay? So, with that out of the way, I did tend to my farm and decided to not sell my parsnips. I am a recent convert. I used to always sell my starter parsnips, but I have seen the light. They are basically worthless, but the energy they provide, while very little, has a little bit more value to me than the gold. I made sure to restock on some much needed potato seeds, and yes, I did splurge on a backpack upgrade. I do mean business around here. But speaking of worthlessness, spring onions would like to have a seat at the table because while they also do provide some energy, they don't really provide nearly as much as I would like either. And I did end up running out of them, only allowing me to get down to level 13 before my weak body prevented me from going any further. But hey, I did make it all the way down to level 35 the next day. But I did take a break from the mines on day 7 so that I could do a quick museum donation run. No free cauliflower seeds yet, but they will soon be mine. Mark my words, you heard it here. I mean, even without those seeds, I did manage to plant my first 3x3 cauliflower patch. Look at it, appreciate it. And then you better send all the positive vibes my way for it to grow big and strong. That's on you. But the safety and protection of my humble field is on my scarecrow. She better be mentally ready to be working overtime. Anyway, I did complete the spring forage bundle the next day and just spent the rest of my day fishing. And finally, I donated enough to get those free cauliflower seeds. Every seed counts here, people. So you better believe I wasted no time planting them. Bask in their glory. And I'm just saying, if you don't grow up to be a mutant, I will sell you to Pierre, and you will have to live with the fact everyone will think you were grown on Pierre's non-existent farm. That's enough shame for generations. Just think about that each night. Of course, even though I had a scarecrow, she decided not to lock in and let the crows get their dirty, dusty beaks on 2 of my crops. Absolutely unforgivable behavior, so please don't mind that I did fork over the extra cash at Joja for some more potato seeds. And then I did manage to catch just a few catfish, 7 to be exact. And then I bought even more potatoes from Pierre this time before hitting up the mines. Quite literally, I did make it to level 50, so I am halfway to getting my hands on a star drop. And I must have really wanted that star drop because I made it to level 65 the day after. Of course, no matter your priorities, it is never okay to miss the egg hunt. So you better believe I cracked the competition and secured first place. Honestly, I could probably do the egg hunt blindfolded at this point, but I think that's more of a reflection on my competition than a show of my true talent. Anyway, I did not hesitate to hand Willie 10K for the fish smoker recipe. And I guess I never dared to speak to Pierre as nature intended, and honestly, I should have just kept it that way, but it was year 1 and there was still life in my eyes. But really, Pierre was the one to have the last laugh here because he cursed me. It took all day for me to finally fish up the cave jelly I was looking for. Then it was time to focus on getting my hands on the ocean jelly, but I had no such luck on the 15th. Taking a break from fishing, I made the executive decision to not plant any more cauliflowers this season. I just think it will slow me down right now as I am working on building up enough money to be able to plant a decent amount of giant crop patches. I did, however, plant more potatoes, and then I forced Clint to smash open some geodes for me, which, of course, I donated any findings to the museum, but then my fishing break was over, but I still came up empty-handed. At least the next day was a good luck day, so I headed right back to the beach. But not even the good luck could bring an ocean jelly up to the surface. But it did bring 4 eels, mind you, that don't have any fish smoker to be placed in. I did go ahead and check my luck again, and it was neutral. Despite not having great luck, I did return to the beach and was finally able to get my hands on that ocean jelly. And of course, I just had to go celebrate by doing a bit of salmonberry hunting since I had missed most of the season looking for jelly. After which, I crafted the highly anticipated fish smoker and started burning my fish supply to a crisp, a profitable crisp. The next day just so happened to be a rainy day, so I took my new fish smoker with me and headed on over to the river. I was fishing and smoking at the same time, managing to catch a decent amount of catfish. And look at all that beautiful money rolling in, just as Yoba intended. The 20th was similar, but I did shake things up by taking my smoker to the mountain lake. And oof, okay, that's disappointing. All my cauliflowers are grown, but there is not a single giant in sight. There is still time for them to reach their full potential. They have 7 days. 7 days until my Pierre threat will come true. Anyway, to get my mind off my failure so far, I did go ahead and hit up the mines, making it down to level 85. It was the final potato planting of the season, so to make some more money in lieu of potatoes, I did head on over to the mountain lake to fish and smoke, which I ended up repeating on the 23rd as well. Okay, there's still no giants in sight. I'm starting to get worried. Like I said earlier, I planned and I thought I had planned enough, but things are not going according to plan. I repeat, things are not going according to plan. In any case, I did end up making it down to level 95 in the mines, so at least I'll have my hands on a star drop soon. Despite my bad luck on the 25th, I did manage to secure that star drop, and I needed it. Not just for the added energy, but for that giant crop manifestation. If I don't get a giant crop now, well, then I might not be cracked up for this whole farming thing. I'm sad to report the 26th was giantless. The 27th had nothing to offer but an ancient seed. I'll take it, beggars can't be choosers, but I really would have liked a giant ancient seed. Okay, here is the moment of truth on the final day of spring. Oh, surprise, there's no giants. What am I doing with my life? My one goal has been to grow giants, and I haven't been able to do even that. I know I said I came from humble beginnings, but I didn't mean for them to be this humble. I wanted them to be like a naturally lucky humble. I wanted that kind of humble, okay? More like humble bragging, you know? But with actual success. Because at this rate, I think it will take centuries before I have a giant. And I hope that's not subtle foreshadowing. And don't even think about skipping to the end to find out, because I can't do that. And if I suffer, we all suffer. We're in this together. I don't make the rules, but I will enforce them, so no skipping. Anyway, here's to hoping summer is a little bit better in the giant department, or a whole lot better, to be honest. I started summer off with an absolute bang. I planted tons and tons of melons. I will not let my legacy be one of shame. I'll leave that one to my man Shane. My fingers are just cramping thinking about all the watering. A moment of silence, please. And I hope you noticed I balled out with some speed grow. Guys, I am about to shatter your reality. I recently learned by someone commenting on one of my videos that you can actually put speed grow on your crops anytime as long as they're not fully grown. Now it's my turn to give you a minute of silence to digest that information. You good? Yeah, I learned that, of course, after I had filmed most of this video, but my mind remains blown just the same. I just had to pass on the good word. Fortunately for me though, watering wasn't as bad as expected. I will say my future plans are to get enough sprinklers to fully automate this process, but seeing as I still have little to my name, such an operation will have to remain just a dream for now. Because right now, I live and breathe the grind. I did a bit of fishing on the 3rd before directing my attention back at my farm as I worked on cleaning the place up. I guess my farm was more of a mess than I had thought because I had to continue these cleaning efforts on the 5th and the 6th and again on the 7th. And I bet you never would have guessed that I did continue these efforts on the 8th as well. But with a fully cleared farm, it was time to get to the things that matter. Waking up to giant crops. Oh, I went fishing and there was no giants? Well, that's disappointing. I mean, there's always tomorrow, and when tomorrow came, I really said, let's not break tradition and continue to fish. But at least on the 11th, my melons were fully grown. They grow up so fast. I mean, they could have grown up faster in a perfect world, but I'm just so proud. But I will not remain proud if they remain this little forever. Live up to your full potential or get into the shipping bin. Just in case, I did end up planting more melons on the 12th. I just want one measly little giant, please. Please. I'll take any rainy day I can get because that does mean these fingers don't have to water all those melons. I mean, just look at all my melons. A straight man's wildest dream, I tell you. Are you kidding me? There's been a death on the farm. A melon death. A melon murder! Call the authorities! One of my melon children got struck by lightning! I should have insured those melons so Pierre could pay me for my suffering. Instead, I will sit on my farm and stew silently in my suffering. Whoa, sorry, that just feels a bit too real. But the pain doesn't stop there because I think I sold my coal accidentally. I'm coalless. I'm giantless. I mean, at this point, what do I even have? Don't answer that. Please, spare me. Because I might as well have been the one fried by that lightning because I harvested a melon. And that, well, I guess that one's on me. So I did the logical thing. I went and I replanted more melons and then wasted absolutely no time heading to bed because the day, quite frankly, was already bad enough. We didn't need more of it. And oh, would you look at that? There were no giants to lift my spirits on the 15th or the 16th. I actually lost 2 more melons on the 17th, which is the complete opposite of what I wanted to happen. If life was a game, and somehow I do think this one is, I would be losing. I did go ahead and replant the fallen soldiers, but I fear they probably won't have enough time to grow big and strong into the giants I just know they can be. Is this what being a parent feels like? Because quite frankly, I don't like it, but I would like to double this feeling and give it to the next person. Thank you. The 18th was another traumatic rain day. I am someone who loves the rain, but I hate lightning, at least in game. But I mean, look how cool I am fishing with 2 fish smokers by my side. And phew, the storm only managed to attack one of my blueberries. I am sorry to my blueberry, but the lightning can strike you any day of the week as long as my melons are safe. Speaking of keeping my melons safe, I made sure to water them before bed. I feel like for the time being, I have enough gold, but I do admit I am kind of worried about how I planted my melons. The advice I remember reading back in the day, years ago at this point, was to just plant giant fields of crops so that you would have a higher chance of getting a giant. But that really only works if you don't care where the giant grows. If you weren't aware, I do care. So if I do end up getting a giant, it might not be even in the meticulously plotted out location I mapped out before ever planting a single seed. I guess you just have to get up when life knocks you down like this, but I feel like I'd like to remain horizontal. Thank you very much. For some reason, I did participate in the trout derby. That's really how you know it's still year one, because I'm going to most of the festivals. And yes, I actually did go to the luau. It was uneventful. I didn't spare one of my melons for the governor. Day 21 was useless, no giants. Day 22, again, useless. Day 23 had green rain, but no giants. So you already know it was useless until I did manage to find a prismatic shard from the meteor on my farm. Of course, I would get a prismatic shard before my first giant crop because, I mean, why not? Day 24, not even worth mentioning, honestly. And woo! Finally! Oh no, it happened. I knew this was gonna happen. I feared this. I have my first giant, but guys, it's in the wrong spot. I soiled it, quite literally. It's just gotta be my emotional support giant for now. I don't have the heart to axe it, especially at the rate I'm getting giants at, but I did have the heart to drop off my watering can for an upgrade. Only with my luck, I did drop it off before I used it for the day, so I had to reset the day in order to water my crops first, forcing me to relive my earlier trauma. Even when I think my luck is turning around, something like this has to happen. Punch me while I'm down, why don't you? Day 26 was uneventful, but at this point, I'm not really complaining because on the 27th day, yes, I did get another giant, but you guessed it. It's yet again in the wrong spot. It's not in the spot I planned out, and I only have myself to blame. I shouldn't have tried to take the easy way out of planting all my giants. Fortunately, no new giants were in the wrong spots on the last day of summer, but it is just so sad to see all these melons with so much potential harvested. I had to emotionally recover from all that trauma from summer, so I did have a slow start to fall. I upgraded my watering can again, so I couldn't plant anything until the 3rd. I could have planted earlier if there was a rain day, but it didn't decide to rain until the day my watering can was ready, and honestly, I shouldn't have expected anything different. This time, I made sure to be strategic about my planting. For the most part, I planted them in a checker pattern, and I swear, if I have yet again made another mistake, I will absolutely crash out, and it will be 100% deserved. Isn't it just so funny that I did mess up? Absolutely hilarious. If I don't laugh at myself, I fear I would cry because if 2 giants grow in the right spot, I won't be able to plant anything in the middle of them. I told you I should have planned more. I was a fool. Learn from my mistakes. But I'm pretty sure none of you will be recreating this whole thing, filling your farm with giants after watching the amount of suffering I have gone through so far. I only have 2 giants. There's a long way ahead. Unless, of course, you enjoy suffering as much in-game as you probably do in the real world. In that case, suffering is 100% guaranteed, and if you have a joyous time, I don't want to hear about it right now. Maybe in a few decades. At least, I am at the point where I can mostly just spend my days watering as many pumpkins, because that's what I did on the 4th all the way through the 13th. Of course, my watering can did not see any action on rain days, but I'm not complaining. At this point, I do need to celebrate the small wins because there haven't been too many giants. My pumpkins were fully grown on the 14th, but no giants made their appearance. There were no giants on the 15th or 16th, but at least on the 16th, I was able to get the star drop from the fair, so I could be reminded of what it actually feels like to get a giant crop. Because, well, I do have 2 giants, but they're in the wrong spots. Giumbus loves me, and I think that might be the only giant who does. I mean, if my pumpkins had any love for me, they'd grow into giants, and my other fully grown giants would move themselves into the right spot. I was then hit with a giant drought. No giants on the 18th through 21st. Don't get your hopes up because I didn't get a giant on the 22nd. I actually lost a pumpkin to a storm, so my odds of giants are even less now. And would you look at that? Fall came and went with no giants, and I didn't find any powder melon seeds either, so my winter season looks bleak as well. It was at this point I was regretting my decision to have ever had this idea to fill my farm with giant crops. I thought I was doing something wrong, but no, turns out these 3x3 patches of crops only have a 1% chance of turning into a giant each night. And yeah, you did hear that right, 1%. I'm gonna be here for such a long time. Okay, it's best I accept my fate now. At least I didn't let myself suffer through winter. I did myself a favor and slept right on through winter. For reference, I only have 2 giant crops to my name, but around 17 hours in the game. Giving up is not an option at this point, although maybe honestly I should have, but I guess there's always year 2. And as the next year rolled around, I was feeling a little bit more at peace with the fact I was not completely a failure, since that 1% chance is very low. I can safely place all the blame on RNG. I swear, I was beating myself up for the slow start last spring, but little did I know what awaited me. Nothing but pain and suffering. To avoid both of those things this year, I did take the time to more meticulously plan out where each 3x3 plot was going to go, so I wouldn't have crops growing in unwanted spots. And I won't be preventing any land from being unused due to my questionable placement. This planning took so long, I had to take a break midway to hit up Pierre's to buy more cauliflower seeds and some speed grow. Unfortunately, I did spot the deluxe speed grow right after I made my purchase. It's okay. It's okay. Pain at this point will only make me stronger. Stronger in what ways, you ask? Well, I am still figuring that out even to this day. When I do end up figuring that out though, I'll probably be decayed into the speed grow that I am placing on my plants. So don't wait up for me to come to that realization anytime soon. I attempted to plant all my seeds, and by a stroke of luck, not lightning this time, I was able to plant them all before the passing out hour could knock me out for the night. Cursed by Pierre himself, I wasn't able to plant any more cauliflowers besides the 9 seeds I had left. Pierre, count your days. You're getting on my very frayed nerves. And yes, I could have just gone to Joja. I've done it once, I can do it again. But the walk to Joja is simply too far for a highly sophisticated farmer like me. Are you kidding me? I have not only Pierre coming for me, but weeds as well? My poor cauliflower was destroyed by a measly piece of wood. I accidentally destroyed one of my cauliflowers, so I had no other choice but to restart the day. If only I could just do that to this whole save at this point, or even my whole life. I did make sure to craft even more scarecrows because, as you know, protection is important. Always use protection, which that protection definitely came in handy when I planted even more cauliflowers on the 5th. It's go big or go home, and I'm already home at my farm, so my crops might as well go big. Please, I beg of you. I swear every time it storms, I hold my breath because I fear the storm will take my precious cauliflower children away from me. Take anything but my children. Unless it's not a cauliflower, then, well, I don't care. I narrowly escaped the storms, but I could not escape the weeds. Once again, I woke up to the terrible news. Another cauliflower child had perished in the night. Pour one out for him, would you? And maybe you could keep them pouring because the next day, another one was down for the count. And it was a Wednesday. The world, Mother Nature, and Pierre were all working against me. If I wasn't so determined, I'm not gonna lie, I might have quit right here and now. And maybe I should have listened to that instinct. I nearly went into a panic at the bookseller notification because I thought another one of my cauliflowers was down for the count. But they all lived to see another day. So, in celebration, I naturally planted even more cauliflowers. I swear, if I don't get a giant soon, I will lose my mind, if I haven't already. And that kind of thinking is exactly why I woke up to the sweet, sweet sight of my 3rd giant crop. But this is embarrassing. I totally didn't take my advice and forgot protection for some of my crops. Are you kidding? And to top it off, I planted some of them wrong. Please, I need a moment. I think I have indeed officially lost my mind. Hours and hours of work, and what do I have to show for myself besides 3 giants, most of which aren't even planted in the right spot? To gain some much needed confidence, I had to smoke all the children at the Egg Fest. It's not how it sounds. I'm not going to put the children in the fish smoker. I'm going to smoke the competition that are children. It sounds a little suspicious now that I say it out loud. But I had to put the universe back in alignment, so hopefully my egg hunt win will start a streak of wins on my farm. But wishful thinking can only get you so far. I watered and tended to my farm from days 14 through the 19th. But then on the 20th, exactly what I didn't want to happen happened. A giant cauliflower grew in the spot I didn't want. Yes, I could have just destroyed them, but I've barely got any giant crops as is. I didn't think the game would be so cruel to me. To top it off, the fairy thought, I'll just add more pain because she came and visited the day after all my cauliflower plants grew up. There is a hate campaign out there against me. I'm positive of it. You could be thinking to yourself, well, if only you had planned better. I'm just going to stop you right there. I don't want to hear it. Don't victim blame me here, okay? Even if I'm a victim of my own stupidity. I have put my blood, sweat, tears, and time into this, and I have been rewarded with nothing but pain, suffering, and a few misplaced giants. And you know what? It's just a little too much like real life for my liking. Good thing it didn't let up because I was once again attacked by the weeds, destroying cauliflower that had just been old enough to mature. Life cut way too short. To be honest with you, I don't think I'm even working on farmland anymore. Instead, I think I inherited a graveyard of crops gone too soon, crops that never got to live to their giant potential. I was obviously too sad to attend the flower dance, so I kept a vigilant watch over my cemetery of cauliflower. Unfortunately, no more cauliflowers lived up to their potential, leaving me with even more cauliflower corpses. Yay. While spring ended on a much depressing note, I was more hopeful as summer rolled around. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. It was a survival tactic at this point, and no, if you were wondering, I did not learn my lesson. So I did in fact plant melons in the spot my cauliflowers perished at by those weeds. I told you I'm determined, and really that's a nice way of saying I'm stubborn. I can't back down, even if it would be better for everyone involved. And oh, isn't that just a sweet little thing to wake up to? The weeds already got my seeds before they could sprout into a melon. I genuinely think my goal of filling my farm with giants is going to be near impossible at this point. I mean, it's one thing to have questionable crop placement, but to have Mother Nature working against me? I never stood a chance. And I should have seen this earlier. But my very smooth brain would not let me give up, and so I soldiered on. For you, and for Giumbus. My cat son is so embarrassed of me right now. Luckily, I did use the deluxe speed grow, so all my melons were ready on the 10th, but none of them got the memo. Maybe I need to whisper them words of encouragement or something, like maybe they're just not getting the emotional support they need to grow up big and strong. Or maybe they just need some milk. They need that calcium in their lives. Mr. Q, I know I said I would call you Mr. Quee, but I lied. I can't do it, okay? So, Mr. Q, if you would kindly water my crops with your mystery milk, I would much appreciate it. Or if you could use your millionaire or billionaire, I can't quite tell, powers to make sure my melons are protected from the weeds, that would be great, because not even a fence could provide protection for my weeds. And great, to top it all off, I ran out of money. So now I really have nothing going for me. And then I was hit by a storm, but let's think happy, positive thoughts. Oh, the lightning got 2 of my melons, you say? I'm great. You know what? I actually didn't want those 2 melons. Not like I needed the extra chances of getting a giant or anything. Thankfully, I was spared from any more traumatic events until I accidentally plucked one of my melons up from the ground. I know that one was on me, but I didn't mean to do it. I'm so sorry. You know what? I don't even blame my melons for not growing into giants. It's not their fault, it's mine. And I think you should know when I was going through this day, I did write in my notes to please end me from this misery, yet I just continued on like a fool. But I'm not perfect. I feel like we have established that at this point, and I have hammered that point in so hard. But that weed notification was my final straw. So I went over to those melons and plucked the rest of them up. I'm done. I will no longer live in constant fear for my melons' lives. Since I've lost enough melons in that spot, no more crops will be planted there. I don't care if I'm no longer following my plan exactly. I think that plan was under advisement the first time I planted any crop down, to be honest with you. Who's the real winner here? Okay, even I can admit it's clearly not me, but let me have this. Because quite frankly, I am solely fueled by delusion at this point. I watched as the days passed by. No giants. I have more crops than ever, but yet no giants. I did have a fake out with my emotional support melon. I thought she was the new melon in town, but no, she was just my crusty dusty support melon. Regardless though, I kept on waiting and waiting. And thankfully, the waiting paid off because on the 27th, 2 new giant melons entered the farm. And suddenly, all the work I put in did not seem worth just 2 measly melons because that was all I got for my second summer. But my efforts elsewhere did pay off because I woke up to the rusty key. And now the plan is to try and automate this entire process, or as much as possible. Every Friday, I'm going to buy sprinklers from Krobus so that eventually all I'll have to do is plant and place speed grow on my crops. And then the sprinklers will take over the rest. If only I could automate the planting process the same way, it would save me a lot of time. And yes, I could potentially use a Junimo hut, but they simply take up too much space. Anyway, I sat and waited until my pumpkins were all grown. Somehow I managed to lose a sprinkler, but my sorrow was quickly forgotten when I laid eyes on my first giant pumpkin. Finally, a day 1 giant. Now, if we can only keep up this pace for the rest of my time on this farm, but with my luck, I wouldn't exactly count on it. On the 12th, I was greeted by the weed notification and I panicked. I purposefully did not plant in the location where all those weeds were growing, and oh thank God, I don't know what got destroyed by the weeds, but it wasn't my precious pumpkins. It has to be said, the fairy is a cruel, cruel woman for visiting me when all my pumpkins were already grown. She does not support my giant crop goals clearly. I mean, sure, I'm not entirely positive these aren't GMO giant crops, but she has little room to complain because I can't be certain her magic doesn't have nuclear side effects. I mean, has there been any case studies done on the effects of her magic on crops? I don't think so. So get off your high horse, fairy, and make my crops grow big and strong next time. To get over the fairy's insulting actions, I did turn in my sweet gem berry to the statue man so I could be reminded of what life is all about. Giant crops, of course. I needed the reminder, and so did my crops because they're not getting any younger or bigger. That motivation took way too long to kick in, but regardless, I did get my second giant pumpkin of the season on the 23rd. And then there were no more giants to be seen. And again, I didn't have a supply of powder melon seeds to make winter worthy of more than a good time to stock up on sprinklers, which is exactly what happened. I slept through most of winter, but at the end of the 28 days, Grandpa made sure to show me he is proud, well, sort of. I got 3 candles, but I really would have liked the 4th. I guess my presence just isn't quite big enough for him to fully be proud of me, but with my track record, can you really blame him? With year 2 done and over with, it's time for year 3 to pick up the pace. If we keep up this pace, like I said before, it's gonna take forever before I'm done, and I've gotta admit, I don't even think I'm that stubborn to stay here forever. Or am I? Of course, I planted as many cauliflowers as I could manage on day 1, and then I continued those efforts on day 2 as well since there was a surprising amount of grass and debris to clear. Once my precious cauliflowers were safely tucked into their little beds, I waited, and I'm sad to report there was a diva down on the 9th day. But hey, at least it happened earlier in the season, so I could easily replant. And unfortunately, there was another diva down the next day. I was so distraught, I almost missed my first cauliflower giant of the season. And then the next day, there was another giant in town. But my cauliflower army said, hey, we have put in the time, so you can wait a little bit. And wait, I did, because it wasn't until the 19th that my third and final giant cauliflower of the season decided to show up. I now have 11 giants to my name. To be honest, I could go ahead and count how many giants I planned with that Stardew planner, but where's the fun in that? So suffice to say, I have 11 giants, but I really don't know how much progress that is, and I have a feeling I don't really want to know either. Because I have a feeling it's not as much progress as I would like ideally. Beggars can't be choosers, and these are still my humble beginnings after all. Even if some people would have reached perfection at this point by now in game. In true elf fashion, I did in fact plant the melons incorrectly. I'm pretty sure at least. Once again, I'm hoping these melons are the ones that don't grow. I really should have learned from my mistakes, but I put in so much effort planting them that I just didn't have it in me to strike them down. Maybe a summer storm can do that for me? And yeah, okay, I really did a bad job at planting. I said, hey, things are finally starting to pick up in the giant front, so I better just self-sabotage before some other forces of nature get there first. And it's even worse than I thought because there is yet another plot planted wrong. If those giants grow, maybe we'll just pretend it adds character to the farm, which is sorely needed because there's not a single new giant in sight until the 18th. I was starting to get a little nervous, and luckily I only had to wait 3 more days for the next giant to arrive. And I fully thought I was going to end with only 2 giants to my name, but on the last day of summer, one of my melon patches decided to bulk up into a giant, ending the season off with a whopping 3 giant melons. Fall saw how many giants summer produced and then thought, hey, let me double it because I planted my pumpkins for this season. I did have 1 seed left over, and let me just say, that does make me feel a little bit uneasy, like why do I just have 1? But what didn't make me uneasy was the giant on day 10, the giant on day 11, and the giant on day 12. Don't you even forget about the giant on day 17 or the one on the 24th. So while fall did not exactly double the giants, it was pretty close, and that's a lot better than how all the other seasons went, so I'll gladly take it. High off the amount of crops I got in the fall, I decided to brave my first winter. I only had enough seeds for 4 plots of powder melons, but I was not going to let that measly number bring down my spirits. It might have been for the better if I did though, because I scoured the lands for more seeds, planting 3 more 3x3 plots. But so far, no giants! The town must have heard of my efforts. I don't know why, because the only person I talked to is Krobus, and he's not even a person. And he's really not even a part of the town. Regardless, Sam knew to give me deluxe speed grow for Christmas. You could say I'm in love. He really just knows the way to a woman's heart. But my heart did not grow any bigger this winter because my powder melons all decided to stay small and wimpy. And so I'm going to cancel winter for the time being. You were given an opportunity to impress me, but you failed the test, winter. Spring, on the other hand, did not disappoint because on the first day possible for my cauliflowers to grow up, there was a giant there waiting to greet me. No, wait, scratch that. There were 2 giants. Twins! Unfortunately, giants did not keep on coming because I had to wait until the 20th for my next giant to appear. I mean, I guess it was worth the wait, and okay, I need to get a grip of myself. This rate is way better than where I was in year 1. I can't let my head get as big as these crops now that things are starting to take off. And take off they did, because after the 20th, I did get another giant on the 21st, and oh look, another giant on the 23rd, and another on the 25th. Yeah, I got 6 giant cauliflowers. No big deal. Wait, That's a lie. It is quite literally a big deal. With the next summer season, I almost thought I had the entire operation automated, but in my true fashion, I messed up planting and 2 plots had to be sacrificed. But hey, on the bright side, I will say I do like having the sprinkler surrounding each plot because it does make it a lot easier to see where the new giant is. You can write that down as a tip if you ever want to fill your farm with giant crops, if you would dare. I was getting flashbacks of year 1 with that weed message, but I was safe from harm for the time being, but not safe from my first giant on day 15. The 25th brought double trouble with 2 new giants. I was getting a little worried that my newfound luck had run out. It hadn't though, because there was another giant on the 26th, but that was where my giant additions ended for this 4th summer. Luckily, I did not have to worry about my luck running out in fall because my first giant popped up on the 10th. I got my second on the 14th, my third arrived on the 16th, my fourth on the 19th. And then I had to do the unthinkable on the 21st. I got rid of one of my incorrectly placed emotional support melons. And then I realized I really didn't need to do that. I guess I could have reset the day if I really wanted to, but not even the death of one of my emotional support melons could keep me down. Lastly though, the 5th and final giant of the season appeared on day 28. Since I slept right on through winter, I hopped right into the 5th spring. And finally, after 4 full years, my operations are finally fully automated. So from here on out, I'll update you when something big happens or when a new giant appears. Anyway, are you surprised to see me here so soon on the 2nd of spring? If your answer was anything but yes, I don't want to hear it. And no, I did not gather you here so you could see my cleared out farm. No, I finally finished the community center. Now I can finally put that prismatic shard I found years ago to good use. And such an occasion as this deserves nothing less than a party hat. Also, yes, we are going to watch the community center cutscene together because it's going to be a long time until our next celebration. So let the giant roll call begin. On day 11, I got not only 1 giant, but 2. And I did put that prismatic shard to good use, all for a sword that I will not be using. My 3rd giant appeared on the 14th, the 5th was on the 15th, a 6th giant emerged on the 16th, and can you believe it, there were 2 more giants on the 19th. But that is where my streak of giants runs out for the season. I feel like we had a good thing going, but our fun time was cut short. So, for the summer, I started off strong on the 10th with my first giant melon. I was nervous the meteor hit one of my giants or my crops, but thankfully both were spared from such a traumatic death. There was another giant on the 11th, and now that things were starting to consistently pick up, my cat Casper decided to pay a visit and supervise. He would say my success is owed to him and his planning, but I would say he was sleeping on the job. Anyway, the 18th brought on my 3rd giant, rounded out on the 21st with the 4th and final giant of the season. Following the summer, the first giant of fall was on the 11th, and then another one popped up on the 12th. 4 days later, my 3rd giant arrived. Day 18 brought on the 4th. Day 20 has both the 5th and 6th giants of the season. And it doesn't end there. The 7th giant showed up on the 23rd, and on the final day, 1 more giant decided to say hi, coming out to a total of 8 giants in the fall. I feel like things were moving so slowly before that I'm really not used to this rapid pace. But trust me, I can get used to it even if it's the last thing I do. I know I said I canceled winter, but you know me, I'm stubborn. So I decided to give it another go, and I actually got a giant powder melon on the 6th. And yes, I did unlock the raccoons and was able to trade for some powder melon seeds. And look, there's the 2nd giant powder melon I almost missed. And the 19th brought on the last giant of the winter. I did in fact walk past it at first because I am so used to a useless winter. Year 6 started off with giants on day 12, 18, 20, 21, and 23, ending with a total of 6 giants. Not too shabby, if I say so myself. Summer, however, started off a bit slower. I didn't have my first giant until the 17th, and then my second one showed up on the 24th. I almost missed the 3rd one that spawned that day as well, but I quickly came to my senses and noticed the giant melon. I mean, they're not exactly hard to miss. Day 25 brought on the fourth and final giant of the season, but in better news, on day 28, I realized I was rich enough from all my ancient fruit efforts so that I could now make this whole planting process an even better experience since I could just leave all the extra crops at the end of the season so I wouldn't have to hoe dirt at the start of each season. Look how far I've come! Granted, there is still a long way to go. For fall, which is usually a good season for giants, I had giant sightings on day 15, 20, 21, 22, and 27, making that a season of 5 giants total. Not bad. Okay, honestly, we don't need to talk about winter, much to my disappointment. I guess even when you move up in the world, there's always reminders of your humble beginnings. It didn't have to be this way, but hey, at least I look like a trash panda now. At first, I thought maybe my new outfit was intimidating to the giants. They thought I was going to eat them or something because there were no giants for 18 days. But on the 18th, I did spot my first. I also spotted my second and third. And then I was met yet again with the spreading weeds notification. Oh, it totally destroyed one of my scarecrows. I guess even scarecrows have off days where they get scared off instead of the crows. Anyway, on day 20, my fourth and fifth giants appeared. My sixth one showed up on the 22nd, and the seventh popped up on the 25th. Since I'm getting more and more giants, I need to be more and more strategic about where I plant my giants so that I won't be wasting any space. Because of this, I only got giants on days 10, 18, and 28. A little bit of a disappointment, but fall never fails me, so I won't let these 4 giants get me down. And like I said, fall doesn't disappoint. On day 12, I got my first giant. I got my second on day 14. On day 17, I noticed my third. And did I notice this melon before? I'm not sure if I missed it earlier. I know I said giants can be hard to miss because, well, they are giant, but when giants are all you see, they do start to blend together. But I didn't miss spotting my fourth giant on this day, for the record. Day 25 was my fifth giant, and day 28 popped off with giants 6, 7, and 8. It feels like just yesterday I was fighting off the weeds from destroying my crops, but now it's year 8 and that's a worry of the past because no weeds can bring me down when I'm able to get 12 giants in one season. Yeah, you heard that right, 12. I got my first and second on day 12, another on day 15, preceded by one on day 16, 17, 22, 23, and 25. There were 2 on day 26, one more on day 27, and the final giant showed up on day 28. I've almost got a complete row of giants now, and I have never seen something so beautiful. Let's hope summer is as fruitful as spring. I got my first and second giants on day 12, my third on day 13, my fourth and fifth on day 14, a sixth on day 15, 2 more on day 17, another one on day 24, another one on day 26, and another one on day 27. And yeah, another one on day 28. Mother Nature has nothing on me now. I'm unstoppable. I just hope I don't jinx myself, but all good things must come to an end, I suppose. Fall was good, but not 12 giants this season good. I got my first giant on day 13, my second on the 17th, my third on the 20th, another one on the 21st, a fifth and sixth giant on the 25th, and then I ended the count at 7 on the 27th. And just when I thought I gave up on winter, I came back hoping things would be different. I stockpiled on tree seeds to trade for those powder melon seeds. I had over 100 powder melon seeds, but unfortunately, I still came up empty-handed. Well, almost, because there was only 1 giant, and I really should just give up on winter. To kick off the spring giants, I got 2 on day 10, a third on day 11, a fourth and fifth one on day 13, the 14th brought me a 6th, my 7th was waiting for me on the 19th, my 8th and 9th showed up on the 23rd, and I finished off spring with a 10th giant on the 27th. Not too bad, especially after that terrible winter. Moving on to summer, my first and second giant spawned on day 12. And as you can see, I am married to the giant crop grind. There is nothing in the world that matters more to me than me and my giant crops. Anyway, I got my third giant on the 16th, a fourth one on the 20th, a fifth one on the 21st, a sixth and seventh giant arrived on the 22nd, an eighth popped up on the 23rd, and finally, the ninth giant of the summer showed up on the 24th. Summer was hit after hit, and it must have hit the sense completely out of fall because my first giant, well, I guess my first 3 giants, did not make an appearance until the 20th. Yeah, you heard that right. I didn't get my first giant until practically the last week of the season. But luckily, fall was a month of multiples. Otherwise, I'd have even less giants. But day 24 brought my 4th and 5th giants. And that's it for fall, and at this point, it definitely feels like a bit of a drought. But we've now hit year 10, so the drought better not continue. I'm going on having endured this for a decade. I think I've suffered long enough. But spring brings in the same amount of giants as fall did. I got my first giant on day 10, my second on day 13. Of course, for the celebration of a new decade, I did have to put on my party fit before I could proceed to welcome my third giant on day 24. My 4th giant on day 26, and then the final giant of the season on the 27th. Summer definitely turned up the heat in more ways than one. My 1st and 2nd giants spawned on day 10, my 3rd on day 12, my 4th and 5th on day 14, a 6th on day 15, a 7th on day 16, and then we closed things out with a straggler on day 28. It felt like they just kept on coming there for a while. Clearly, fall did not follow this sentiment, because it was not until the 18th that I got my first giant. To celebrate, I made sure to head on over to the wizard and buy the golden clock. Weeds will now be a thing of the past. Even though I have outsmarted the weeds, they still take time to clear, especially at the beginning of spring, so this 10 million gold purchase was definitely worth it. But what wasn't worth it was a long wait for the next giant on day 24, and the final giant on day 28. But I can't be too sad when I'm now the owner of a golden clock. Clock that! Now that I've officially endured a true decade of trying to grow giant crops, I think it's time to just check in monthly. Otherwise, I think we'd be here for hours. Quite literally. I mean, I was here for hours, but I've chosen to spare you from that. You're welcome. Spring only brought 4 giants, and honestly, I'm not too sure what happened to those bottom plots, but I guess it's too late to worry about that now. Summer wasn't as nice to me, providing only 3 more giants, and I have another missing plot. I must be forgetting to plant some of these, and I will definitely pay the price for that in the lack of giants. Fall brings on 4 more giants, and then because I have way too much gold already, I decided to change my farming profession so I could get the perk that allows crops to grow 10% faster. Time is money, people. The next spring brought only 3 giants, and yes, I did keep running around like a fool trying to see if I missed one somewhere, but I wasn't quite that lucky. Copying spring, summer also only had 3 giants, and then fall didn't want to be left out, so fall also only had 3 giants. I almost missed the 3rd one, but no giant will go unnoticed under my watch. Okay, spring of year 13 is just straight up rude because I only managed to get 1 giant. The shame, the absolute insult of it. I'm a highly skilled farmer and I deserve more than just 1 giant. But hey, no worries because summer had my back. I got 8. Yeah, 8 giant melons, and I thought I was being pranked. There were that many, but then I realized who even could be pranking me? Well, I guess I could have been. I could have been pranking myself. My mind is still recovering from everything I endured the first couple years. And the game just knew my mind had been blown because it went on to humble me. I only got 2 giants for the rest of fall. I guess I can't be too sad when summer had so many melons. And I just want the record to show that I did in fact get my first ever tea set in-game. Of course, I would get this tea set before my farm was filled with giants. And yes, I was finally able to get level 10 in all my skills. When I tell you it takes years to level up when you're just buying books from the bookseller, you better trust me. Or don't, but you will pay the price for that, not me. You've been warned, and I guess informed. Anyway, spring brought on 2 more giants. Summer was nothing compared to last year because there were only 3. I just hate that the giants I want to grow won't, but I guess quite literally they have all the time in the world since my character never ages. To finish out the year, fall also only had 2 giants, and I think we're going to continue to see a slowdown. I hate to see it, just as I thought things were ramping up, they slow down. But I guess that's a price I pay for wanting my crops in specific spots. In year 15, spring had 3 new giants join the farm. Summer only had 2 additions, but at least we could count on fall to have the most with 5 new giants. Spring did not spring up as many giants as I wanted. I only got 2 new ones. And of course, I had to go and chop one down, so you bet I restarted the day. And somehow, even though I knew no new giants would spawn, I did have hope. Kind of embarrassing. But that hope was crushed, just like how I accidentally crushed that giant earlier. In other news, summer brought on 4 new giants. Love to see that. But then fall decided to rain on my parade with only 1 giant. That is unacceptable. I will settle for 2, but I will absolutely not accept 1 new giant. Year 17 started off with spring, which brought in 3 giant cauliflowers. Summer added on with 3 new melons, and once again, fall only brought in 1 more giant pumpkin. For a minute, I did think it was going to be the first season in a while where I got no giants one season, so fine. I guess 1 giant is better than none. Right as I say that, of course, the next spring would be the first season in a while that has no giants. Wouldn't really expect it any other way at this point. Summer didn't have a lot of competition with spring's poor performance, so yes, I will celebrate the fact that summer did have 1 giant. But again, just when I thought things were slowing down, fall comes back with a vengeance, bringing in 6 giants. 6 giants, but the giant I really want to grow is nowhere to be seen. Another spring with just 1 giant. And my other cat decided to closely spectate now because she is not satisfied with the slower pace. But at least she's not asleep on the job like my other cat. Anyway, summer brought the giants with 3 new additions. And then fall even had more with 5 new giants added to the family. Since the available plots are now becoming more limited, I finally think it's time to let winter join back in on the fun. And it really is a good thing I did because I got 3 new powder melon giants. It's a new year, a new decade, and maybe this will finally be the time we fill up this farm. But this decade is not off to a good start as spring has 0 giants. And all I feel is pain and misery, and then more pain. I was a bit nervous for summer, but thankfully she came in clutch with 3 new giants. And then fall decided to copy summer with 3 new giants as well. Winter was a disappointment, making me rethink ever spending the time to plant during the winter since I got 0 giants. Year 21 spring had me thinking I was yet again left with 1 giant, but as I was planting for summer, I did realize I missed 1 for spring, so spring brought 2 giants. Sorry to ever doubt you, spring. Summer again brought on 3 giants, followed by 2 more in fall, which was then followed by 2 more in winter. Another year, another spring. This spring brought on 2 new giants, and that's another row of giants complete. It's so satisfying. But then I was sucker punched because summer had absolutely no giants. Fall didn't do too much better with 1 giant pumpkin. But at least summer didn't completely disappoint with 2 giant powder melons. The next spring brought on 2 more giant cauliflowers. Summer only had 1 giant. Fall likewise only had 1 giant. But hey, at least winter had 3 more giants. Each year is starting to feel the same, but I will persist. I have no other options at this point. To be clear, spring wrapped up with 2 giants, summer ended with a healthy 3 giant melons, fall followed up with 2 giants, and winter. She came to play because she brought 5 new giants to the farm, even if none of them were in the spot I want. It's fine. It's completely fine. It's not like I had a plan or anything, and that 1 spot I want the giant to grow is preventing me from said plan. Spring of year 25, yes, you heard that right, 25, brought only 1 giant, but that 1 is better than the 0 giants summer brought. And then again, in fall, there were 0 giant pumpkins. At least winter brought something to the table with 1 giant. But still, it's not the giant I wanted. To make up for this lacking season, spring made sure there were 4 new cauliflower giants. 4 giants, and still not the one I wanted. Summer was really no better with 1 new giant melon. Fall was even worse with no giants. And would you look at that, I not only had my first ever tea set, but I got my second one before my farm could be filled with giant crops. And it didn't seem like winter wanted to contribute because there were yet again no new giant powder melons in winter of 26. Spring seems to always pick up the slack because there were 3 new giants, but I realized I messed up the placement of one of my rows, so I will just improvise a little. Okay, it does look terrible, but I am not cutting down any more giants, and so, yes, it adds character, trust me. Summer only had 1 giant, and again, not the one I wanted. But hey, fall not only had 2 giants, but fall finally gave me the giant I wanted. I can finally rest easy, or at least easier. I still have to fill the farm with giants before I can truly rest easy. And then winter finished the 27th year off with 2 giants. And now I bet you're wondering why I wanted that specific giant. Well, I thought it would be so satisfying to see the farm slowly fill the rows up with giants. So let's kick things into high gear because we've been here for far too long. Spring had no new giants. Summer, you didn't have to follow in spring's footsteps, but nonetheless, there were no giants in summer either. Fall had other plans though, bringing in 4 new giants, and then winter finished off with 0. Spring of 29 had 1 giant, summer had 0, fall had 1, and winter brought in 2 new powder melon giants. And we're into yet another decade, but we're still here with the same slow pace. Spring had 1 giant, summer had 0, fall had 0, and I thought winter had 1, but I couldn't get where I needed, so I had to end up axing that giant powder melon, which meant winter was a bust. The next spring had 0, summer had 1, fall had 1, and then winter also had 1. They should have all communicated with spring so they could have matched. But spring did get the memo on year 32 with 1. Summer had 0 though, fall did have 1, and then winter rounded things out with 0. Spring once again had 1 giant, summer ramped things up with 2, fall disappointed with 0, and winter ended with 1 new giant. Spring continued the streak with 1, summer had 1 as well, fall stepped it back up with 2, and winter had 1. To no surprise, spring had 1, summer had 0, fall had 0, but then winter brought in 2 new giants. Unfortunately, spring had 0, summer had 0, fall had 0, but winter did not let us down with 1 sole new giant. With fewer plots, the odds of getting a new giant each year is not great, which is why spring had 0, summer had 1, fall had 0, and then winter also had 0. Yikes, year 38 was my first strikeout. There were no giants in spring, summer, winter, or fall. Spring finally had a giant the next year, but the same could not be said about summer, fall, or winter. Yet another new decade, and still my farm is not filled completely. The grind continues. But year 40 made no effort to accomplish my goal because spring, summer, fall, and winter were giantless. The next spring had none, summer had 1 on day 11, and for some reason I was so hyped that I replanted that season, but I should have known that I would only get the 1 giant. Fall followed up with 0, and so did winter. Year 42 was yet another year with no giants. But even though 43 started off with 0 in spring and summer, there was a new giant on the 9th in fall. But again, I don't know why I thought I had a chance at another that same season, so I replanted. Winter also ended up having 0 giants. Again, year 44 had no new giants. Year 45 followed up with no new giants either. At this rate, I'm never going to fill up my farm. At least in year 46, despite having no giants in spring and summer, fall did follow through with 1 giant. And you know what that means? Only 1 more giant to go. Of course, winter couldn't finish the job and just end things there. No, I had to continue into the next year. Spring had no giants, summer had no giants, but my tried and true fall pulled through with the final giant. After a painstaking 47 47! Let that sink in. 47 years, and my farm was finally filled with giants. I don't know how, but Jazz and Vincent have been children for 47 years. In the meantime, just look at me. My character has lived a whole lifetime on this farm, wasting away waiting for crops to turn into giants. Was it worth it? I can't quite say, but I mean, doesn't this look satisfying? Just ignore the parts of my farm that are not so nice. Like I said, it does add character, and yes, I know there are some spaces that could theoretically house another giant, but I wanted an accessible farm. I wanted a farm that was filled with giants, but not too filled that you couldn't do anything else. And if you were by chance wondering, I did find 56 chicken statues on my farm. I was thinking it would be more, but as it would happen, the chicken statues didn't appear as frequently with the more giants that spawned on my farm. Who would have thought? I also did acquire a small army of owl statues. Don't mess around with me and my owl squad. With that being said, there's one obvious thing left to do. It's time to destroy all my hard work and see what 47 years of giant crops will bring in. I'm hoping it's at least worthwhile. I have to admit, it truly is so painful to destroy all these giants because it took so long to plant and grow them. I have never had a save that's gone to 47 years, which now that I think about it, I am a bit insulted it didn't just drag it out to 50. Surprisingly, it took almost all my energy to axe all those giants. So destroying them was not only just mentally painful, but physically as well. And oh okay, only 1.5 million gold. I've got to say, I am sorely underwhelmed by that. My greenhouse of ancient fruit could do way better than that in like 1 year, let alone 47. But don't worry, I made sure to recover my save file so I could go back a day and have all my giants safe and sound, away from the path of my axe. I mean, I did put 85 hours into this save. I'm not about to let all my work go down the shipping bin like that. Also, while I have you here, if you are still here, I did unlock Ginger Island all the way back in year 6, over 40 years ago, because I was thinking maybe I could try and get the Kui fruit quest, but I just didn't think it would be worth my real life time since I already spent so much time as is, and there was no guarantee I would quickly get that quest, and then I would also have to spend the time hunting down the seeds. I mean, in the meantime, I think I'll just retire to Ginger Island, but I'm kind of getting this weird tingly feeling like there might be another farm to fill with giants. So bizarre. With that, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, you are now morally and legally obligated to fill your own standard farm with giant crops. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules here, I just enforce them. But anyway, stay tuned for similar videos in the future. Subscribe if you like. Bye!